welcome to the I Am Noer Channel. This time, I will tell you a story about Robin Hood, the Green Arrow of Sherwood. For that, let's take a few moments to detach from the hustle and bustle of the outside world and turn inward. Find the most comfortable position for you right now. You can sit in a chair with your back straight but still relaxed, or lie down comfortably. Make sure your body is well supported. If you feel comfortable, gently close your eyes, or if you prefer, direct your gaze to a spot on the floor a few feet in front of you intentionally. The next few moments are yours to give exclusively to yourself. Time to rest, restore, and rediscover peace. Chapter 1, The Return of the Longbow. He left as a knight, he returned as a ghost. The winds of Sherwood moaned through the trees as a hooded man crossed the border of Nottinghamshire. His boots were torn, his tunic stained from weeks on the road, but his back was straight and his eyes sharp as steel. Ben of Locksley had returned from the Crusades, but home was not what it had been. His manor was in ruin. His people were taxed to ruin, children starving in the shadow of a golden cathedral. His father's banner was torn down, replaced by the crest of Prince John. And then he saw the gallows. 3 peasants accused of stealing grain hung limping. The breeze, their feet barely brushed the earth. Robin dropped to one knee beside a child who stared. Unmoving. "Who did this?" he asked. The boy whispered, "The sheriff." Robin said nothing. He simply picked up a bough from the mud, his father's longbow, and walked into the forest. He would return to town tomorrow, but not as a noble, not as an outlaw. Chapter 2, Sherwood Burning. The sun was pale over Nottinghamshire. Its light filtered through ash and mist. Ben of Locksley had spent the night in the woods beneath a ruined elm. He hadn't slept to only listen to the whispers of wind through the branches, to the faint cries from villages he once protected. The forest was different now. Broken, hunted, he tightened his belt, slung his father's longbow over his shoulder, and walked toward the town, a town under chains. Locksley village was quiet but not still. Soldiers in black and red livery patrolled the streets, swords at their hips, cruelty in their eyes. A new gallows stood in the square, freshly built. People looked away when Robin passed, unsure whether to greet him or fear him. He saw an old friend, Thomas the Cooper, once a joyful man, now hunched, hollow-eyed. "Thomas," Robin whispered. The man blinked, recognized him, and turned away. Robin understood. People had learned that hope brought punishment. The poacher's gallows. A commotion broke out near the courthouse. Robin moved closer. Sticking to the shadows, a man, barefoot and shaking, was dragged to the gallows. His face was bruised, a rope already around his neck. "He was caught in the royal woods with a deer carcass," barked a soldier. "His wife is ill." Someone in the crowd whispered, "He only wanted meat." The sheriff of Nottingham stepped forward, tall, draped in fur, eyes cold as iron. "No man may steal from the king's forest," he said. "Not for love, not for hunger." The lever cracked. Robin stepped forward. The first arrow. "Stop." One word. "Come." But it silenced the square. All eyes turned. The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "And who are you?" Robin stepped into the open. "I'm the rightful Lord of Locksley, and that man is under my protection." Laughter rippled through the guards. "You're dead," one said. Ben drew his bow in a blink. The arrow struck the noose, slicing it in half before the trapdoor dropped. The man fell but lived. Before anyone could react, a second arrow flew into the sheriff's crest, cracking the badge on his chest. "Run," Robin said to the poacher. Then he turned, sprinted into the alleyways, into the greenwood. They chased him, 10 soldiers, horses pounding, blades drawn. But Robin knew this land, the turns, the dips, the blind paths through bramble and brush. He vanished into the forest like mist. By nightfall, he stood at the top of a hill, looking back at Locksley. A fire burned in the east, reprisal for his defiance. He didn't cry, he didn't curse. He simply knelt, placed his hand to the ground, and made a vow. "If the law protects only the crown, then let the forest protect the people. I will fight not as a lord, but as a ghost, as a whisper. From this day on, I am Robin Hood." Chapter 3, The Sheriff of Nottingham. A name in the wind. By morning, the hill had already spread in hushed voices around cooking fires, and in whispers behind locked tavern doors. The story was rattled. He stopped the hanging, split the rope with a single arrow. The sheriff's badge shattered. He disappeared like smoke. Back into Sherwood. They say it was Robin of Locksley, but changed, and slowly a new name grew from lips chapped by fear. Robin. But to the poor, it became a prayer. soldier presented a burned piece of wood, the broken gallows beam. One man, the sheriff hissed. One, behind him stood Guy of Gisborne. Tall, scarred, and dressed in black leather, Robin of Locksley is no longer a knight. The sheriff continued. He's become an idea. An idea is he crushed the goblet in his hand, blood dripping from his palm. Must be silenced. Guy said nothing. He simply nodded and turned away. The hunt had begun. A forest of rebels deep in Sherwood, Robin tended. The wounded poacher, a man named Tom Bramble. His arm was broken, his spirit nearly so. You saved my life, Tom whispered. I need yours in return, Robin said. Over the next few days. Others came, not outlaws, but ordinary people. Pushed to the edge, farmers, smiths, a runaway stable boy, a disillusioned soldier. All carried a story of loss, of cruelty, of taxes paid in blood and food. Robin listened, then trained them. He taught them to move like the forest, to shoot, to vanish. Not for war, but for protection. The first seeds of the merry men were planted. A heist in the night. Their first strike came swiftly. A royal tax convoy guarded by 6 soldiers was moving through Fernwood Pass with food and silver taken from starving villages. At dusk, carts disappeared into the trees. When they emerged at dawn, they were empty. Left behind was a banner of green cloth and an arrow pinned into the wheel, with a message carved into the shaft. Return to the people what was stolen. This is justice. The villagers of Edwinstow awoke to find food and coins at their doorsteps. The sheriff awoke to rage. The prince and the price far to the south in a marble-floored palace. Prince John read the news from Nottingham. He laughed. A thief in the trees, he scoffed. But then he saw the coin tallies, the stolen tax, the lost gold. He stopped laughing. Double the bounty on Robin Hood, alive or dead. And send word to the sheriff. Failure will not be tolerated. Chapter 4. The Greenwood Pact, the Hollow Oak. The heart of Sherwood was not marked on any map. It lay beyond the deep stream, where the bracken grew so thick no rider dared pass. At the center stood a hollow oak older than any crown split, by lightning long ago but still alive, its roots twisted into the soil. Like 1,000 gripping fingers. It was here that Robin Hood made his camp. The men and women who followed him were no longer just survivors. They were becoming something new. A company bound not by blood or title, but by choice. Tonight, they would swear to it. The arrival of Little John before dusk as mist rolled between the trunks. A crashing sound erupted from the southern edge of the camp. Trees shook. A voice bellowed, "Out of my way, you moss-eaten hedge rats." Men leapt to arms, but Robin raised a hand. He stepped forward. Bow lowered. From the trees emerged a giant of a man. Shoulders broad enough to block the path. Beard tangled, wearing half. A tree is a club. I seek Robin Hood, he growled. I aim to knock him flat and take his place. Robin smiled. You found him. You're welcome to try. They fought by the riverbank, no blades, just fists and wit. Robin was fast, but the giant was strong. When Robin finally slipped behind the big man and dunked him in the river, laughter echoed across the trees. The man rose, soaked and gasping and grinning. I've not been bested in 10 winters, he coughed out. Robin offered his hand. What's your name? The giant clasped it. They call me Little John. Will Scarlet and the Blood Oath. That same night, a knife flew past Robin's head and pinned a pheasant clean through the neck. A hooded figure stepped out of the brush. Dual blades at his hips, a crimson sash at his waist. I don't follow banners, he said. Only 'cause and you, Locksley, are building one worth bleeding for. Robin frowned. And if I said no, Will smiled, then I'd rob you blind and vanish into the night. Robin laughed. You'll fit right in. Will's full name was William Scarlet, former nobleman's son who had killed the man who murdered his sister, and has been hunted ever since. Where Robin led with honor. Will brought fire, Friar Tuck and the cup. The next to join needed no invitation. He walked into the camp unannounced, humming a hymn, a cask of mead in one hand and a staff in the other. Who in God's good forest do I talk to about the heresy of taxing the hungry? He asked cheerfully. Robin looked up from the fire. That would be me. Good. I brought drink and sin in equal measure. Friar Tuck was a runaway monk, too loud for abbots, too fond of ill for sermons, and too righteous to stay silent. He refused to take a sword, but when pressed, he could knock a soldier out cold with a single swing of his iron-ringed staff. I may not bless your violence, he said, but I'll bless your cause, the pact. That night, under the hollow oak, Robin stood before his gathered companions, Little John, Will Scarlet, Friar Tuck, Tom Bramble, and 6 others who had fled tyranny. He held out a simple cord of green thread, tying it around each of their wrists as they stood in a circle. "This is not about revenge," he said. "It's about justice." "Not about gold," added Tuck, "but we'll take it." "Not about war," said Little John, "but we'll fight if we must." Robin looked around the circle. "We are outlaws," he said, "but not criminals. We are free men and free women of the Greenwood. We swear to protect the innocent, to take from the corrupt, to bring balance to a land ruled by greed." He raised his hand. "Do you swear?" Each gave their oath, and thus Greenwood Pact was born, not in parchment, but in blood, in firelight, and in shared purpose. The sheriff responds far across the forest in Nottingham Castle. The sheriff stood before a group of hired mercenaries. His patience was thin, his pride wounded. "They grow," he spat, "like weeds in the trees. People call them heroes." He turned to Guy of Gisborne. "I want their names. I want their families. Burn the villages that feed them. Poison the wells. Cut the throats of those who speak the name Robin Hood." Gisborne nodded. "I'll start with Locksley Village." Chapter 5. Rob the Rich, the Convoy. The sound of hooves echoed through the morning mist as 6 royal wagons rolled through the winding forest path south of Nottingham. Each cart was iron-rimmed and guarded by soldiers wearing the crimson and black livery of the crown. Inside the wagons were chests of silver, taxed from half a dozen starving villages. Officially, the money was bound for King Richard's war effort, but the seal on the crates bore Prince John's sigil, the lion with its tail wrapped like a noose. The sheriff of Nottingham watched them depart from the castle gates with a thin smile. "Let's see if your ghost dares to show himself. Lies in the trees from a canopy of leaves." Ben Hood watched the convoy wind its way through Fernshade Hollow, a narrow trail boxed in by cliffs and thick undergrowth. He turned too much. The youngest of their band, who crouched beside him holding a wooden whistle, signaled Will, then run to the eastern ridge. Much nodded, blew to short notes, and disappeared into the leaves like a squirrel. They crossed the valley. Will Scarlet, Little John, and Friar Tuck took their positions. Plan has begun. The trap. As the wagons entered the narrow pass, a rope snapped. Taut between 2 trees, the lead horse was clotheslined, sending the driver tumbling. Shouts rang out. Arrows rained from above. Ben's band didn't kill unless cornered. Every arrow aimed to wound or disarm. Spears were knocked from hands, horses spooked into bolting, wheels jammed in fallen branches. Before the guards could regroup, Robin dropped from a branch and landed on the central wagon. He knocked on the lid of the largest chest. "Anyone in?" There no reply. He kicked it open. Gold, silver, dozens of tax seals. "Perfect," he said. The fight. 3 guards rallied at the rear. One charged at Friar Tuck, who stood humming a hymn and swirling his staff. The staff swung one's clong, and the guard dropped like a sack of barley. Will Scarlet danced through the fight, daggers flashing. "Take the horses, not the lives," he shouted, "unless they give us no choice." Little John lifted an entire guard by the collar and tossed him into a muddy ditch with a grunt. "I do like this part," he said, Robin's message, as the last guard limped into the forest. Ben opened a parchment and wrote in clear script, "These taxes now serve the people. Send more wagons and we'll keep collecting. With thanks." He tied the note to an arrow and fired it through the banner of the lead wagon. Then the band began rolling the treasure-filled carts deeper into Sherwood, where none but the forest folk could follow. The gift. That night, as fireflies danced among the trees, baskets of bread and coin appeared outside the homes of the poor in Eastwake village. Boy awoke to find his mother weeping, not from fear, but from the weight of unexpected loaves in Nettlerow. The orphanage cook opened the door to find her pantry mysteriously full, and in Locksley, the one-legged veteran found his mortgage deed torn in half and a bag of silver on his windowsill. Each gift bore the same message: for the people, always. Ben Hood, meanwhile, in Nottingham, the sheriff of Nottingham, sat with a goblet of wine, reading the note Robin had left behind. He crushed the parchment in his hand. "You want to be a hero?" He spat, then die like one. He turned to Guy of Gisborne. "Double the bounty again. I want his head on a spear, and burn any village that dares hide him." Gisborne bowed, then turned to leave. He did not say that 5 of his best trackers had already vanished into Sherwood and never returned. Chapter 6, Lady Marian, the Rose of Court. Lady Marian Fitzwalter, daughter of Baron Fitzwalter of Huntingdon, stood at the edge of Prince John's banquet hall, her face a mask carved from quiet strength. Gold-threaded silk hung from her sleeves. Her eyes missed nothing. She saw the way Prince John laughed too loudly, how the Sheriff of Nottingham whispered into his ear with coiled anger, how nobles toasted the order of the realm while peasants begged outside the gates. She smiled. Politely, she bowed when required, but behind her calm exterior her heart burned, for she had seen the way people lived beyond the castle walls, and she had not forgotten the boy she once loved. Memories of Greenwood years ago, before the Crusades, she had walked with Robin of Locksley beneath the elms of Sherwood. He had been cocky, then too proud, too full of wild dreams. But he had made her laugh, and he had listened when no one else had. Then he left for war. Then came news of his death. Now, they said he was back not as a lord, but as an outlaw. She didn't know what to believe, until she saw the sealed parchment hidden in her father's study, marked with a single green feather. If you remember the truth, meet me at the river ford. It's the secret meeting. She went alone, dressed in hunter's green, her face hidden beneath the hood. The river ford was quiet, shaded by willows. She waited only a minute before he emerged. Robin, older, scarred, sharp around the eyes, but still him. Marian, he said, bowing his head. I thought you were dead. I was, he said. I returned to a kingdom that's half starved and half burned. She studied him. You're robbing tax caravans. I'm stealing back what was already stolen. She stepped closer. Then why send it to me? Because you know what they're doing, he said, and I need someone inside the lion's den. The dove and the blade. Marian hesitated. She could stay safe, obey court, marry some dull nobleman and sip wine until her heart withers. Or she could act. I'll help you, she said, but not as a messenger. Robin raised an eyebrow. I want to be part of the rebellion. He looked at her, truly looked, and saw not a noble girl, but a warrior in waiting. Then I'll teach you the bow. I already know it, she said, pulling a dagger from her boot. Gisborne's obsession. Back in Nottingham, Guy of Gisborne stood before the sheriff's war table, fingers tapping. We've failed to catch the hood, he growled. But perhaps we don't need to chase him. The sheriff looked up. I've seen the way he once looked at her. Lady Marian Gisborne nodded. If we can't catch the outlaw, perhaps we bait him instead. The sheriff smirked. Then make it so. A spy is born. Marian returned to the palace the next day, expression calm, dress perfect. But beneath her skirts was a folded message, and in her eyes purpose. She began watching, listening, sending coded notes sewn into hymns. Past two messengers disguised as stable hands. Her name was not yet known in the forest, but soon the merry men would know it, not just as a lady of the court, but as one of them. Chapter 7, The Silver Tournament, the Bait. The proclamation spread like wildfire. By order of His Grace, Prince John, a grand tournament of archery will be held at Nottingham Castle. 100 silver. Marks to the winner and the title, Royal Bowman. The crownal subjects are welcome. The prize was gold, but the real reward was bait. For Robin Hood's skill with a bow had become a tale sung in every tavern. The sheriff was sure he couldn't resist. In Sherwood, the merry men gathered around the notice. It's a trap, said Will Scarlet. Obvious as a viper in a basket, said Tuck. Robin studied it in silence. Then let's bring it. Disguise and dagger. In Nottingham, the town square overflowed with colors, drums, and noble banners. Archers from across England gathered, feathers in their hats and pride in their hearts. Among them stood a gray-bearded old man, hunched and silent, dressed in rags and leaning on a crooked staff. No one noticed his bow. No one recognized his eyes. It was Robin Hood. On the balcony above, Lady Marian sat beside Prince John and the sheriff, playing the part of a bored court lady. But her eyes kept drifting toward the line of archers, searching for him. The contest begins. The archers stepped forward one by one. Their target stood at 60 yards, a gold coin pinned to a painted oak. First man struck the outer ring. The second came closer. The third, a noble from York, split the black dot. Then came the old man's turn. Robin walked slowly, bent, coughing. The crowd chuckled. He notched his arrow, took a breath, and split the coin clean in half. Gasps, cheers, confusion. From the balcony, the sheriff stood. That shot was not done by any old fool. He signaled the guards. Robin smiled and pulled back his hood. Afternoon, the escape. The courtyard erupted in chaos. Guards surged forward. Robin rolled behind a cart, knocked another arrow, and fired, cutting the rope on the main tournament banner. It fell across the guards like a net. From the crowd came a familiar bellow, Little John, swinging a cart axle like a war hammer, while Scarlet leapt from a produce stall, tossing Robin a sword. Marion, still on the balcony, turned to the sheriff. "I told you this would happen," he scowled. She dropped a bag of caltrops under his feet and vanished into the stairwell. The ride. Ben and his crew fled the town on stolen horses, galloping hard into the forest. Behind them, horns blared, hooves thundered, and arrows flew, but none hit their mark. By twilight, they were safe among the trees once more. Robin dismounted, breathing hard. "You're insane," said Will. "Brilliant, but insane. We get what we came for?" Robin asked. Tuck grinned, a purse full of silver, and a dozen new recruits from the crowd. Ben turned to Marion, who had appeared on the edge of the clearing, cloak torn but eyes bright. "You were perfect," he said. She smiled faintly. "I've been practicing, but not all was well. Back in Nottingham, Gisborne knelt before Prince John. I nearly had him. Nearly, the prince growled, is for poets and cowards." The sheriff stepped forward. "We know where he hides now. He's grown to bold." Prince John's fingers tightened on the armrest, then burned the forest. Chapter 8, a price on his head. The wanted man, across every village, tavern, and church door. New parchments were nailed with red wax, wanted for treason. Robin of Locksley, known as Robin Hood, master of banditry, theft, rebellion, and insurrection. Bunty. 2,000 silver marks. Dead or alluvial who shelter him shall be punished as traitors in smaller print. A list of names followed. Will Scarlet, Little John, for your tuck lady, Marion Fitzwilter's message was clear. No one is safe anymore. The burning. They struck Hathersitch first, a small village nestled at the edge of Sherwood, known to hide wounded rebels. Gisborne's men came at dawn, torches lit, shouting the king's law. They burned the barns. They hanged to farmers who had once sold bread to a man with a bow, and they left behind a sign scorched into the oak. For every arrow lost, a village will burn. Robin and his band arrived too late. Children wept in the ashes. An old woman clutched a charred locket. Robin dropped to one knee and said nothing. Down in the camp, the fire reached more than homes. It reached hearts. At camp that night, tensions flared. "This isn't just about justice anymore," said Will Scarlet, pacing. "It's a war, and wars have casualties," added much younger but angrier now. "How many more villages will suffer for your legend?" Ben stood silent by the fire, eyes fixed on the flames. Marion placed a hand on his shoulder. "You can't blame yourself for their evil." "I don't," Robin said. "But I lit the match they're chasing. A poison gift." Later that week, a rider came through the woods under a white flag. He carried a sealed box and a parchment stamped with Prince John's sigil. It was addressed to Lady Marion. Robin opened it first. Inside was a single red rose, its petals laced with a dark powder. "Poison." The note read, "Even roses die in the forest. Surrender or she will." The sheriff of Nottingham, the turning point. That night, Robin called a council under the hollow oak. "The game has changed," he said. "We fight not just for coins or bread anymore, but for lives. They will keep burning villages until we stop them." "So we stop them." "How?" asked Little John. "We cut the head from the snake." Will leaned forward. "You mean the sheriff?" Robin nodded. "We take the fight to Nottingham. No more hiding. We strike the castle." Gasps. Silence. Then Marion stepped beside him. Then we'd better start preparing, she said. And one by one, the merry men agreed. The forest would no longer stay silent. Chapter 9. The forest burns. A line crossed. It began with smoke, thick and black. It curled through the trees of southern Sherwood before the sun had fully risen. Sparrows flew in frantic circles overhead. Deer stampeded through the undergrowth, fleeing fire. Robin stood on a ridge above Greenshade Hollow, his cloak soaked with dew, and watched flames devour the trees below. Behind him, Little John swore under his breath. That was our fallback camp. Will Scarlet appeared next, his face streaked with ash. They knew. They went straight for the shelter, the food stores. This wasn't a patrol. It was a purge. Robin's hand tightened on his bow. "We have a traitor." Smoke and shadow. 3 hours later, a scout returned, dragging a limp, half-conscious figure between two guards. Much the miller's son, bloodied, rope marks on his wrists, but alive. They caught me south of Ed Winslow, he croaked. I was bringing supplies. I didn't talk. Robin dropped to one knee. You did enough. Much. You're safe now. But Will wasn't convinced. We're being hunted like animals. That means someone's feeding them our scent. Everyone turned silent. The forest, once haven, now whispered betrayal, the sheriff's wrath. Back in Nottingham, the sheriff raised a goblet as Prince John dined beside him. The forest bleeds. The sheriff said, soon the outlaws will either scatter or burn with the trees. Prince John licked grease from his fingers. Don't. Kill Robin too quickly. Hang him, publicly, with Marion at his side, the sheriff smirked. And what of Gisborne? Prince John raised an eyebrow. He has failed me twice. The sheriff bowed his head. I will handle him. A house divided. In Sherwood, Morel had broken. One of their own, Tobin, a former knight turned outlaw, packed his things and left without a word. A few others followed. What's the point? He'd said. You shoot arrows, they burn villages. It's not justice anymore. It's punishment. But let them go. But as the shadows grew long, he stared into the fire for hours. I built this on hope, he whispered. But hope is dying. Marion placed her hand in his. Then we build something stronger. The plan. Robin stood at dawn, wind stirring his cloak. This ends one way, he said. We stop hiding. We strike Nottingham itself. You want to storm a castle? Said Tuck. We have 20 archers and no siege weapons. We won't storm it, Robin said. We'll slip inside. How? Asked John. Robin's eyes found Marion's. She'll open the gate. The camp fell silent. Then Marion nodded. It's time. Gisborne's choice. That same night, Guy of Gisborne watched the sheriff pour wine into a silver goblet. The sheriff handed it to him, a toast to loyalty. Gisborne paused. He saw the flicker in the sheriff's eye. He set the goblet down, untouched. Senor, own dogs to do your dirty work, he said coldly. I'm done with this hunt. He walked out before the guards could stop him. Behind him, the sheriff smashed the goblet against the wall. Chapter 10, the heart of the castle, the eve of the strike. Sherwood stood silent, as if the forest itself held its breath. Robin's camp had moved deep into the ruins of an old Roman watchtower. A single torch flickered against stone as he unfurled a rough parchment. A map of Nottingham Castle drawn from Marion's memory and scraps stolen from royal messengers. He pointed to 3 marks. North gate, lightly guarded but iron-bound. East, wall drain tunnel, large enough for 2 men. Inner courtyard chapel, where Prince John would hold a secret meeting the next night. We go in at midnight, Robin said. We in it before dawn. The disguise inside the city, Lady Marion moved like shadow and silk. Her hair was braided in courtly fashion, her smile polite, her voice low. She made no missteps, not at the feast table, nor in the dark halls behind the throne. She slipped notes into guard schedules. She placed a key beneath the stone beside the drain tunnel. And most of all, she waited, watching the chapel where Prince John and the sheriff would soon meet. She sent her last signal just before midnight, a lantern placed in the eastern tower window. A single green flame, the infiltration. The outlaws came into groups. Group 1, Robin, Will Scarlet, and Mudge through the drain tunnel. Group 2, Little John, Tuck, and 3 archers scaling the north wall using ropes and stolen armor. The city was asleep, or pretended to be. The tunnel was tight and stank of mold and rot, but they emerged behind the castle's chapel right where Marion had said. She waited in the shadows with a torch. You're late, she whispered. You're radiant, Robin replied. Will smirked. Get married later. Let's steal a throne. The inner chamber, Prince John stood inside the chapel, flanked by 10 armed guards and the sheriff. The rebels are dying, he said. They cling to their forest like rats in a fire. Tomorrow we ride north and crush what's left. And Marion, asked the sheriff. John smiled. She'll learn loyalty or burn with them. The door creaked behind them. Robin stepped in, afraid. You're going to be late for your own downfall. Guards shouted. Swords were drawn. Chaos erupted. The battle within. Will Scarlet moved like a storm, blades flashing silver in candlelight. Little John burst through a side door and tackled 2 men into the chapel's pews. Tuck knocked a guard out with a candlestick, then used it to block another's blade. Robin faced the sheriff. They circled in the chapel aisle, 2 men once on the same side of law, now fighting over what justice truly meant. Your rebellion is dead, the sheriff spat. Then why are you still afraid? They clashed sword against sword. Robin cut across the sheriff's cloak, knocking before the killing blow could fall. The sheriff threw a powder in Robin's eyes and fled Prince Johnny's. Kate's Marion reached Prince John as he tried to run through the sacristy. "You trusted me," he hissed. "I never did," she said, and punched him with the hilt of her dagger, but before Robin could take him. When guards arrived, Marion pulled Robin aside. "We can't take the throne tonight," she said, "but we can take the story, the retreat." The rebels vanished back into the tunnels, dragging stolen plans, gold, and two injured guards as hostages. The bells rang throughout Nottingham, but Robin and his band were already gone. They left behind one thing, a banner draped over the chapel door. "The forest is not finished. Justice lives." Edged back to the green, at dawn, Robin stood in Sherwood, wounded but standing. They had not ended Prince John, but they had struck fear into the courtyard and hope into the people. Chapter 11, The Fall and the Crown, a quiet before the storm. The days after the castle raid were uneasy. Robin's name now echoed beyond Sherwood, whispered in Yorkshire, shouted in Derby, even scrawled on parchment in the royal court. People believed, but belief was not enough. Died in Sherwood. The rebels fortified their last stronghold and abandoned Hilford Ring with ash trees. Lady Marion sharpened arrows beside the fire. Little John drilled new recruits, while Scarlet muttered, "This feels to come." Robin agreed, Dot, and then the letter came, delivered by a child, no seal. Just these words: "Surrender by the next moonrise, or we will hang every captured villager in Nottingham Square. Come alone." The Sheriff of Nottingham, Joyce. Robin sat with the letter in his hands. "If I go, it's a trap," he said. "If you don't, they die." Marion said. Dot will throw a dagger into a tree. "You can't walk into that den alone." Ben looked at his friends, brothers, and sisters, forged not by blood, but by battle. "Then we don't walk," he said. "We ride." The final plan. That night, the rebels gathered beneath the hollow oak for the last time. Robin unrolled a map. "We split into 3 groups. Tuck in Mary and free the prisoners. Will and John lead the frontal distraction. I go in through the south gate alone, as they expect." He looked at each of them. "If I don't return, you will," Marion said. He touched her hand. "Then you lead them." Nottingham in flames. The plan began at dawn. Tuck and Marion moved through the tunnels beneath the city, guiding a dozen rebels to the castle's underbelly. They found the prisoners, villagers, farmers, even children shackled in cages. They freed them, fast and silent. Meanwhile, Will and John attacked the western wall with fire and arrows, drawing every guard from the gates, and Robin, cloaked in ash gray, entered from the south, slipping through the chaos and smoke. The final confrontation. In the throne hall, the sheriff waited. He wore black armor and a smile. "So," he said, "people's hero comes alone." Again, Robin tossed down his sword. "No more blood. Let them go." The sheriff laughed. "You think this is a duel? This is a performance." He snapped his fingers. The guards dragged in Much the miller's son, bruised and bleeding. "Choose," the sheriff said. "Save him or kill me." Robin paused, then moved fast, not for the sheriff, but for Much. The guards tried to stop him. They failed. Robin freed Much, shoved him aside, but it cost him a sword stroke, a deep wound across the ribs. The sheriff drew his blade. "Your death will make a fine warning, a crownless victory." But Robin smiled. "You talk too much." And from behind, Marion's arrow struck straight into the sheriff's shoulder. He turned, shocked, and Will Scarlet burst through the side door, blade drawn. In 10 seconds, it was over. The sheriff fell, not to one hero, but to all of them. The last stand. But victory had a price. Robin collapsed beside the fallen throne, blood staining his tunic. Marion caught him. "You're not dying," she said. "I'm not," he said with a grin. "I'm just finally resting." He handed her the sheriff's crown, stolen from Prince John's war chest. "Give this to someone who deserves it. Not me, not a king." He touched her cheek. "You were the heart of it all. You always were." Then his hand slipped away. Epilogue. The green legend. Robin Hood was buried beneath the hollow oak. No name, no stone, only a bough laid across the roots. The people said the forest itself wept. Lady Marion became the leader of the rebellion, and then the governor of Nottingham. Under a new charter of justice, Prince John fled. Crown passed quietly back to King Richard, who returned to a different England, no longer afraid to rise. And in the stories told in villages and firesides, the people remembered not a thief, but a light in the trees. Chapter 12, The Green Keeps Growing, A Forest Reborn. Spring came early that year. The ashes of the burned trees gave way to green shoots. Wildflowers bloomed where the sheriff once marched soldiers. The river ran clear through Sherwood, and laughter returned to its banks dot in the shade of the hollow oak. A small boy placed a wooden toy sword at the base of the tree. His mother smiled. "What did I tell you about the man who lived here, that he fought for us?" She nodded. Even now, a new order. Under Lady Marion's rule, Nottingham changed. Tithes were lowered, orphans fed, the jail emptied. The guards no longer wore black and red, but green and gold. And on the town square where executions once took place, a statue rose, not of a king or prince, but of a bowman standing beneath a tree dot, no name on the plaque. Just a line for the people. What became of them? Well, Scarlet vanished into the wilds of Wales, returning only when help was needed. Little John married a huntress and taught the next generation how to fight with honor. Friar Tuck reopened the ruined abbey and turned it into a sanctuary for body and spirit alike. Much the miller's son became a teacher, passing on stories, not just skills. As for Marion, they called her the Green Lady, the Wise Lady, and sometimes just Marion the Bold. She never remarried. She didn't have to. The legend lives. Every year, on the first full moon of spring, the people gather beneath the hollow oak. They bring food, songs, and carved arrows. Children act out tales of Robin Hood, leaping from branches and shouting at invisible sheriffs. And at the center, but all the forest listens. No king could kill it, no crown could claim it, because the green lives on in those who stand for justice, in those who speak truth, and in those who carry bow and blade for the voiceless. Robin Hood is gone, but his legend still grows.